Yes, good evening to ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it's a pleasure to welcome you all to our last session prior to the valedictory session for this two-day live webinar sessions that is going on. This session will focus on using technology for growth. I'm just going to introduce our session chair, Mr. R.J. Lakshmikanta, who is a committee member for Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, Tamil Nadu. And he's the Vice President, South Asia, and Managing Director, India, Fluid Control and Pneumatics, Emerson Group. RJ has joined Emerson in 2002, and he became the director and currently the Vice President. RJ is leading ASCO Pneumatics India in the capacity, again, as the Vice President and MD since 2013, and Vice President, South Asia and Australia, New Zealand since 2019. RJ has a bachelor's degree in industrial production from Bangalore University and master's in engineering management from BITS Pilani. With this introduction, I would like to hand over this floor to RJ to take it forward. We have a very interesting speakers for this fireside chat session. Over to you, RJ. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujata, for your kind introduction. I'm really honored to be part of this session. And thank you, IACC Tamil Nadu, for this opportunity to talk about technology for growth. So let me start by introducing my co-panelists. And they've got varied experience and coming from different background. The first person that I would like to introduce is Mr. Vaidyanathan Chandrasekharan. He's a co-founder and chief strategy officer at Congruent Solution. He has over 28 years of experience in software development, business process outsourcing, and setting up large offshore development center. He is also an industrial engineer like me from College of Engineering, Chennai. Welcome, Mr. Vaidyanathan Chandrasekharan. The other panelist is Mr. Ronak Doshi, partner from Everest Group, USA. He leads banking, finance, and BFS, I think it's much better for me.
Insurance, yeah.
And insurance research. He has a wide-ranging experience which includes go-to-market strategy, market positioning, future of work and skills readiness, enterprise productivity, enterprise adoption benchmarking, which is very, very relevant in today's context of technology for growth. He holds an MBA from XLRI and bachelor's degree in computer science from KG Somaya. Welcome.
Thank you.
Before we start the discussion on the subject today, I just wanted to set the context for this discussion. I was thinking, what should I really start with? So when I was just looking at what's really the definition of technology, I thought it is fairly complex, because when you use this technology, a lot of people think, a lot of things come to people's mind. So when I look through this definition, it's very simple. Technology is just an application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes. So it's very simple, but wide-ranging applications and purposes for which it can be applied. So yesterday I was actually in Pune before I flew to Ahmedabad for a business meeting. So I went to one of the educational institutions yesterday, and they had a typical problem, which is a very simple problem, and we thought technology can help them solve this. And the problem is that they're trying to develop a biodiversity park. And you have different plants which go into that, and they need watering at different frequency and different days and for different length of time, and different quantity of water needs to be fed into those plants so that you can develop a biodiverse ecosystem. So one of my colleagues said that, this problem we can solve by putting some technology around this and develop a very simple program and set of solenoid valves to control the flow so that, this can be easily solved. So they were actually wondering, how do we really do this so that, the park itself otherwise has to have a lot of people to maintain this. So I thought that, you can use this in such a wide variety as the technology can be applied. So with this context in mind, let me start with a question to my co-panelists, and anyone can go. So we are actually entering what I call post-digital era. So digital era started in probably somewhere in 70s and 80s with the development of electronics, particularly in semiconductor computers and programming, stuff like that. And we are in actually rapid proliferation of emerging technologies as a result of that. And there are lots of expectations for pragmatic applications of technology, just the way I explained just now. So I just want to ask you, how are you seeing this post-digital era shaping up for your customers?
RJ, this is VC here. V. Chandrasekhar. Everybody calls me VC.
Okay.
You can call me VC without the money.
Okay.
So thanks for the nice introduction and happy to be part of the panel. And thanks Indo-American Chamber of Commerce for inviting me for this session. So as RJ said, there has been a digital revolution for decades now. And particularly the last decade saw a lot of investment for what's called going digital, right? In the sense, how do actually you reach the consumers more and more and have direct interaction with your company, your systems, and so on. So I think a lot of money in several billions of dollars have been spent by various corporations for actually doing the digital transformation, if I may. So from there, actually, it has moved on very heavily towards what I call consumer centricity. Actually, earlier we used to build applications for our customers, but we need to now actually build applications for our customers, consumer, right? So I think it is becoming, because of the wired connectivity, wired and wireless, ubiquitous connectivity, you have everybody reaching out, and it's a fairly large social base on which actually the applications are functioning. So the big thing is in terms of usability, and if you really look at it today, when you go in the streets of, particularly in India, you'll find fruit vendors having a phone pay or some QR code to actually get the payment done, and he's got his mobile phone. And who taught him all that? He didn't go to any class. And that's because actually speaking socially, they were able to, learn from each other and very quickly adapt to the whole thing. I think that is giving us a new paradigm of how do we actually serve the consumers, make it really easy and automate that process. So I think that is one big movement I see. The second thing I would like to add is technology is actually no longer a big barrier. It's breaking barriers for entry. Because earlier, if you really look at any of the auto majors, I mean, they were actually riding on a wave in terms of the automobile revolution. But today, who thought that actually they were using digital technology and the excellence of engineering around digital technology? Somebody completely from outside of the auto industry comes up with a Tesla, right? So it's amazing. And look at it in India, you have Ola suddenly coming up with an electric scooter, which is, who thought that outside of Bajaj and TVS and somewhere, who will be manufacturing a two-wheeler, right? We never imagined. So I think technology is absolutely breaking barriers for business. And that is one big trend I see in terms of the post-digital era. And you have to be alive. I think technology investments are becoming absolutely mandatory for us to thrive in this, world. I'll let Ronak add his bits.
No, and again, I think I'll kind of build upon the point around breaking barriers and disruption. And I think that's where the role of technology is pretty high, right? You spoke about all the disruptive elements, right? From QR code-based payments to, electric connected vehicles. So, and we are seeing two types of disruptions enabled by technology. One is an outside-in disruption. So if and let me take financial services example, that's where I kind of come in. So if I'm an insurance company, I'm getting disrupted by what the likes of Tesla are doing, right? They're creating autonomous, connected, electric shared vehicle. They're changing how consumers behave and consume mobility as an experience. Now it's not a product anymore. And as you do that, your underwriting of those risks as an insurer is changing, and my products are changing fundamentally. So it's technology in one industry is kind of, creating ripples into your core business of what you do. On the other end, if I look at, there is a lot of inside out disruption which is happening. So for example, we are seeing central banks in India, China, Japan, Singapore, and now even out here in the US, we are seeing central bank digital currencies or crypto assets or tokens or all of these kind of innovative payment methods that are coming. And we're now starting to see that creating innovation in terms of how do you do payments across different channels, how other industries are creating their products and embedding these financial services products in them. So we do see this role of technology to drive this disruption in the post-digital era to be pretty strong, right? So again, that's the fundamental theme that we are seeing out here. And I think, RJ, I think one point that you mentioned in the question itself, I'm actually very much aligned to that, is that pragmatic application of technology. It's not about proof of concept, and it's not just about those pilots and cool thoughts, but it's actually solving real world problems. And how do you bring technology to do that? I think that's happening. So if you look at supply chain as an area, you're not able to have visibility into how the product is moving through the supply chain. Now I'm using technologies like IoT and distributed ledger and blockchain, and you're able to now see visibility into the entire supply chain. You are now able to also, kind of do a lot of, activities in terms of distributed networks across globally right now. That trade finance is a market that is scaling up, and we are seeing these careful application of technology to be a very, very big theme in the market, and that's kind of shaping up most of our, thinking as an analyst and as a research firm out here.
Ronak, you brought about the concept of IoT, Internet of Things. What kind of questions or what kind of things that you come across in your day-to-day life on Internet of Things? Particularly as you speak in this forum, there are many of the attendees are part of the manufacturing industry. If you can throw some light around it.
Absolutely. I would say the biggest that we are seeing out here is currently digital twin is, hey, you have a lot of machinery and other systems which are, kind of in the physical world, or what we would call as in a legacy technology world. But IoT is a digital technology. You can create a digital twin out of it. And what you're now trying to do is you're using the data that is getting there to do modeling, to do product design, to do process efficiency. You can do a lot of activities on top of that without even touching the physical hardware, right? Physical systems. That enabling that kind of innovation at scale and being able to do it software driven and do it anywhere, any place in the world. I think that's powerful, right? So I would say that's for me one of the biggest things that we are seeing. It's happening across manufacturing, energy and utilities. We are seeing this in telecom as an area. So we are seeing this across industries. And I would say the second bit on IoT is the ability to digitize a lot of the physical assets and then make them transmit data. And now what you're able to do is you're able to do predictive maintenance. You're able to basically monitor them. You're able to now see that data and kind of create more insights and analysis. And you're able to increase life of devices. You're able to kind of solve issues even before they occur. I think that efficiency that is creating and that practical application is pretty strong. And the last I would say is transparency and visibility into supply chains in general across industries. We're seeing those three to be major themes and questions that our clients are asking us.
You're muted, VC.
You touched upon a very important point in terms of the IoT. I think for the larger member base, manufacturing 4.0 is completely on the IoT, strength of IoT and the bandwidth and multimedia capability of actually being able to communicate between people and devices, from any remote corner. I think that's the bedrock on which actually, the industry is going to move towards manufacturing, the next phase of manufacturing.
One of the questions which oftentimes comes when we talk about IoT or digitizing the process within the manufacturing plants or industry, where large amount of processes today are still manual. For example, if you go to a traditional plant, which has been built 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, if you ask the plant manager, can I understand what kind of water consumption, water out discharge? The answer is that they have to send somebody over to someone else and they have to look through the register, which is manually written, and get back to you. So, when you go and talk to those companies, they think that, IoT is a very big word, big buzzword, and and it is difficult to implement or find what I call benefits of IoT for the investment that goes through. So in your opinion, do you have any benchmarking around what kind of benefits that can be seen when you implement such solutions?
Yeah, no, and again, I can talk from my experience of what we've seen with clients first, right? So one thing we've seen is we've seen a simplification of the technology stack, right? So it's becoming easier to adopt. And two primary reasons is the ecosystem is coming together. Everybody's saying, okay, we can create the IoT stack for you, from the device to connecting to the gateways and the data that is getting collected and analysis, and then connecting it back with your ERP systems. We are seeing that simplification is happening. So that integration is becoming easier and it's becoming cheaper to consume. So that's one thing we're just seeing is the cost of devices is going down, the cost of technology which you need to kind of connect to those is going down. So that barrier to adoption is going down. So that's one thing we are seeing, which is very positive. But I do agree that there are still challenges in creating the business case or funding case to kind of do some of this. And what we have seen is the funding case is largely around threefold. One is operational efficiency, your ability to kind of save labor, time, material, and avoid wastages, abuse. I think that's something which we are seeing as level one. The second we are seeing is the ability to give better experience to the end customers in the sense of if it's a supply chain thing, if it's a product development thing, your ability to commit on timelines on your products, you're able to kind of see them in real time, and you're able to kind of take decisions at a high level. So that decision making on the operations is going up. The third, which I don't know if I see this now a lot more, is the green benefits of IoT, which is the example that you said. If I'm able to kind of control water wastage by putting IoT devices and controlling them, that's a great thing. Anything which is around electricity consumptions, managing devices so that they are doing lesser carbon emission. All of those use cases we are seeing quite a lot, because you want to avoid any bits of wastages. You want to have more green overall from an benefit perspective, and that quantification of that, if you start putting in your business case, you start seeing, oh, you're saving on your water bills, you're saving on, you're just becoming a better responsible global citizen. I think some of those things we are starting to see becoming more active beyond that efficiency and customer experience product kind of a view is what we are seeing here.
BC, are you seeing any of those things from your customers?
Arjay, actually, I actually consult to a number of organizations, and what I am seeing is, like, it is like how many imagine that you will have video surveillance for security in houses, right? It was not there, and suddenly you find that every house has got a video surveillance. And really, the way I see it is, actually it is just a matter of time. With adoption, prices are just going to go down. So as Ronak said, standardization is happening at a very rapid pace in terms of integrating all of them together. And what I have seen is, when something like this comes, there is a cost for not adopting it early enough. Because it is going to come down, it's going to become cheaper, it's not going to stay the same. But if you make an early investment, there is also a learning curve, there is also an adoption curve. Once you are there, I think suddenly the value that it unlocks for you far outweighs actually all the investment and the pain that you've gone through in terms of doing that. And it actually differentiates you, takes you away from the other people, also ran people who are actually scrambling to actually start leveraging some of those things. So therefore, even if organizations are not seriously looking at it yet, I will strongly recommend them to start some pilots, start some places where actually they can start seeing the value and benefit and learn, instead of it being theoretical, make it real.
Can we apply these solutions, including IoT and other solutions that we just talked about, to industries of various size? For example, it could be an SME, it could be a medium-sized industry, or it could be a very large industry. Is it applicable across the board? Or different, I would say, service sectors, banking sector, financial technology? So how does it really apply? Is it really you should apply to large industries only, or any thoughts around that?
my view will be, it is applicable across, except that it may not be the same business case or the use case, right? So the use cases may be very different. So for instance, take video identification technology, right? I'm on the AI, particularly on the image processing. AI has done, it's gone leaps and bounds, right? I was just really, really surprised to see this video of India from above, as a series where they interviewed the police officer or the senior police officer who had done the entire surveillance of the Sangam at Allahabad, which happens once in 12 years, right? So the last time it happened, once in 6 years, because there is also a half one. The last time there were about 220 million people over 50 days and without an incident. And then he went on to say, it's because of them using 1,000+ cameras and drones and feeding into a central control room, and where it is automatically identifying dense populated places where they're able to mobilize forces and then disperse off and things like that. It's fascinating to see how in a state like UP, the police force actually using cutting edge technology, and it's not expensive. And really speaking, I think it's important to, and this is more like a public service case. You can actually see a number of things, use cases at pretty much every level of the industry. Right now, actually, a fruit vendor is on IoT because he's using his mobile device to really do all his payments and and he also gets a confirmation back right there, right? So in that sense, actually, I think it is applicable for every area. It's only a matter of selecting the right use cases which makes business sense at the size at which we are in and the stage at which we are in.
Yeah. And I would agree, right? And again, we see the point that I would add here is we are seeing, startups, right? Smaller firms, they are being more nimble and agile because they are able to adopt these technologies and move to newer technologies way more faster than larger enterprises who have their own legacy to manage also, right? It's run versus change, and these guys are only doing change. So we are seeing disruptive technology adoption being higher out there. And again, the same concept that I was talking about IoT applies for all of these technologies. Is there is democratization of technology. Let's look at, there are data aggregators. So you don't have to be a large enterprise to have your own data. You could actually buy it and do AI analytics on top of it if you want to train your model. You have democratization of the machine learning libraries. All the cloud providers are basically having all these libraries available. You can use them and build your own products. The same is applicable to all other technologies we are seeing. So it's becoming cheaper and easier to access a lot of this in an as a service models. You don't have to build large infrastructure to do these initiatives. You can actually do this in smaller scale, and then as you have more customers, you can kind of hyperscale that way. So I would say it applies across the board, small, mid-size, and large enterprises. It's just that each business, based on their size and where they are in their journey, will have to take a very different approach to technology because it has to be aligned to what they want to achieve and where they want to get there.
Thank you, Ronak and VC, for great insight into this. I think I'll come back with a couple of more questions as we go forward. But traditionally, when I started my career a long time ago, computers were very rare. I used to share computers. Actually, I never had a computer for myself. But as I moved on in my career, a traditional IT department was more like providing computers, maybe a little bit of software and maintaining them. And then came IT-enabled services. But in the post-digital era, do we have really a separation of so-called IT department or an ITES from the business perspective? Don't you think the technology is so much pervasive today that you can't really differentiate this as a separate department? And how does these roles are evolving in the digital world?
It's a very interesting question and a difficult question, because I used to be in the IT services side for a long time, but I've actually more moved into the product side heavily. I think the role of IT organizations have actually been shifting very, very swiftly. Earlier, it used to be, in fact, they used to do the software development themselves, some of the IT departments, right? And then from there, actually, they went on. And today, actually, the IT departments of the good organizations are no longer sitting and developing software. They are conceptualizing business solutions, and they have a good, knowledge base of what kind of products that are. See, software need not be written anymore. In the sense, some parts of it have to be written. It's like manufacturing side, software is assembled. There are lots of components which are pre-built and available. So like, in your manufacturing side, knowing the design book, similarly, knowing your component availability, how we fit it all together like a Lego piece, right? That, I think, know-how is becoming more and more important rather than actually saying, okay, I'll go and build all those little components. So therefore, they are becoming actually integrators of software which they develop, as well as they procure from outside, and putting it intelligently together in a way to really give maximum leverage for the organization. So that role is changing, and therefore you need more and more of design thinking people in the team rather than just programmers. The value of programmers and developers are just going down, and it is good from an IT services background, because I think programmers are going to be more and more employed in the companies which are making the software products rather than end-use organizations. I think it's already happening in a big way. So that's what I would think.
Yeah. And just to add, right, a little bit thought process is the way we've seen IT and ITES as an industry evolve is from a cost and an efficiency enabler and an arbitrage play. Now they're basically talking about a value play. So which is about how do you do revenue maximization? How do you drive growth? And again, that can happen via your ability to align with business and kind of be driving that business solutions mindset that we see you talk about. So I think we are seeing that journey of, it's not just about IT team managing those systems of records and systems of engagement. They're actually now building what we call as systems of growth, which is the topic of today's discussion, right? Which is how do you create, these systems which are now aligned to business demand themes, the ability to create better products, align them with the channel strategy, create those experiences, and then personalize it for each customer and then scale it up, be it B2B, B2C, B2B2C, whatever industry you're talking about. And the ability to kind of continuously innovate. And as VC said, right, you need to be able to assemble these best of the breed components together to create your stack. So you have low code technologies and these software components already available. And you're doing this in a manner where you are not just thinking of yourself, but thinking of the broader customer journey. So each company is now not thinking of, okay, how do I influence my customer? But it's about what is that entire end-to-end customer journey? How do I design around that and build a system of growth and work with others? So it's about inter-enterprise network, using that data events thanks to IoT and other API and other integration devices, and infusing that data and intelligence into your own operations so that you build those products. So that's where IT's role is becoming even more pronounced in terms of driving that revenue maximization potential. And that's where systems of growth kind of plays a big theme as to how we look at all of this.
With this in mind, can anybody, for example, any industry, be it in banking, financial services, insurance, fintech, or it could be manufacturing industries, process plants, can anybody stay out of technology? What would happen if they try to be outside of this technology or adopting new technologies?
I think they'll get wiped out. It's a matter of time, because today technology is the central piece of nearly every business. Apart from business thought and leadership, the next big thing that comes as a biggest asset is technology. And I think the tantra for really being successful in the new world is actually how do we actually understand technology, leverage technology, really quickly get to leverage it, and then go to market with better products and services. I really think that take everybody. There is also this move. For instance, it's there is this what I call a servicization, right? In the sense, automobile companies are becoming mobility services companies, right? Why? It's because of actually big technology change in terms of actually how that is being consumed by the people, and how the distribution channels work. And suddenly you are fun, and I see that as a very big move that is going to happen, because more and more products are going to be servicized. So, and it's like completely paid on the fly as you use kind of mode. And in this whole process, I see technology is essential, absolutely essential for you to just be in business and stay and thrive. And that will be the differentiator for you to make somebody who's really an excellent organization from an also ran organization. I really think that that's a central piece. And it's technology is no longer like HR. They used to say that people is not HR department's job. It's everybody's job is HR job, right? Similarly, technology is everybody's job now. Everybody has to think technology of how am I going to do that? Every function has to think. I think it's become fairly a key piece in any business journey.
Yeah. And again, every business, right, they're looking to do what we call a stakeholder value maximization, right? So be it your investors, be it your customers, your own people, your partners and all. And the way you're driving value maximization is making their lives easier, making them kind of be able to kind of get access to products, experiences, services, or the operations that they're delivering. And that's where technology comes in, right? It simplifies, it makes your life easier. So if you're not doing this, you're doing things harder way, you're not creating value, you're diluting value, right? So technology will help you to accelerate value maximization. And that's, if you don't do this, you'll be out of business, as we said.
One of the interesting things that comes to my mind is the advancement of technology is actually giving rise to a lot of new industries or new way of thinking and working. So what kind of industries? For example, I was reading an article very recently from McKinsey. It says the analytics industry, you have all this data that you collect, and just the analytics that you do around this data is a $14 billion kind of revenue industry possibility. So what are the types of industries which are really emerging, which is going beyond, a normal traditional manufacturing plant, process plants and things like that?
And I can talk about some examples, right? Again, very fascinating ones. We always used to talk about organizing events physically, right? Now we're organizing events virtually. Now we're going to do events in a meta world, right? So we're seeing metaverse as an area, which is completely net new, right? So we are now shaping up technologies of creating virtual avatars and experiences in a world. Samsung kind of did their entire launch of their new phones and their events in a metaverse, kind of a metaverse lens. And there they are allowing people to buy tokens, right? So this is like a participation certification token that I was part of that event. And that token will have value because there were others who are missing that event will now want to trade for it. And as they trade for it, they can use it to consume some services, buy some products. They'll have some other fashion shows and other product exhibitions in that metaverse, and people are buying. Now you're starting to sell not on an e-commerce channel, but on a metaverse channel. That's like kind of an entirely net new industry in commerce that you're creating as a subsegment. The same example, right? We're talking about these digital assets and tokens, thanks to blockchain, all these NFTs and all. We have entire crypto exchanges being set up, which did not exist, 8 years back, 10 years back. So they're now kind of providing you service to do exchanges on these crypto to fiat currencies, or think of custody operations on this, the ability to, issue these assets, the able to trade it, able to settle it, and then somebody who's holding it for you like any other normal asset. These are things which used to not exist 5 years back, and now we are seeing this to be large businesses, right? Billions of dollars kind of being logged into these asset management, custody operations. So we are seeing this, right? And this is just financial services example that I gave you. It's across industry that we are starting to see and this panning out. You see, you might be on mute. Yeah.
As Ronak said, blockchain technology is going to really revolutionize a number of things. In fact, if you really we used to have this loyalty points industry, right? The entire loyalty point, in fact, people are going to be, the way that a blockchain and people who are imagining products on that, like if you were to fill up a survey, you'll earn tokens on that, right? So, everybody, it's going to be digital currency, and in unimaginable ways, you'll be able to actually get people to act and, interact with their systems. and also earn for it. And really, it's going to be quite a new world out there. Just to give you an idea, in fact, we keep working on I was talking initially about the usability part, right? So one of the things we continuously renew in our product range is to really, really go deeper in terms of understanding the mind of the customer at the size at which they are. We actually do a lot of field studies to understand what is the ecosystem around which they operate. Because nobody operates in isolation. And if we have to actually give a great experience, we have to integrate everybody in that ecosystem. So we actually do a lot of research and investment into doing those kind of things. One of the things that we are likely to kickstart maybe on really looking at what is going to be the future of interfaces with AR, VR, right? Because who imagined that we will have this kind of a video conference? I mean, actually, the necessity of COVID actually accelerated the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Teams and Zoom have revolutionized the whole process of how we are connecting across the world, across time zones, and then having a great experience. Similarly, I think the new interfaces, AR, VR has got phenomenal applications and benefits, and you're going to see people interacting in completely different ways in terms of what they are going to do, what they're going to act, how they're going to interface with their applications or products, and how they connect with their customers in every which way.
One of the other questions that comes to my mind that there's a reason why technology adoption is happening, and what are the key drivers of it? It could be different for different industry. What are the key drivers in your opinion?
At least the way we see our clients talk to us about it, I would say there are three key drivers, right? One is you want to run the business better, right? So it's about operational efficiency. You want to basically improve experience. You want to have modernized systems. You want to have the right things in place. The second is you want to change the business. So you want to have time to market to launch new products, better insights on customers, designing these products, the ability to kind of create those better channel experiences, and so on and so forth, right? And the third is going to be around, as you do all of these, you want to still be compliant, you still want to be secure, you still want to be resilient, right? So you want to be sustainable, if that's the third, right? So if you want to run the business, change the business, and be a sustainable business, I would say those are the three key themes or drivers of technology. And each of them have very different technologies which will adopt, some common, some very distinct. To run better, I need automation. To run better, I need better analytics. To run better, I need to have better technologies in terms of infrastructure, say cloud, say IoT. To be able to change my business, I need better data and insights. I need to have newer channels. We were talking about meta channels and e-commerce channels and QR code channels and so on and so forth. And then when I'm talking about being resilient, I want to have more security. I want to have trust that my consumers can trust working with us. We need to be thinking about the future, not just of the business, but be a better corporate citizen and a better global citizen. Think about green IT and sustainability. I would say those are the drivers that we are seeing most of our customers talking to us about, where they're looking at technology and the business case that kind of drives this.
So one of the things I'd like to highlight to add to Ronak said, or what he said also, is I think the entire ecosystem is changing very, very drastically, because the value growth earlier in those days used to be sized by how many employees you have, what is the large size of plants and real estate you had, all those things were actually marks of saying how much of a scale are you operating in. And that's been actually in the sense, every economist today talks about big growth, but completely the scale of those kind of traditional resources of people and other things are not really on the linear scale at all. It's completely much, much, much less. In fact, one of the biggest problems which economists talk about is this growth without employment, right? So, and what it is driving is technology is going so fast. Actually, people are preferring less and less of less skilled people and more of high skilled people. And I think the population dynamics are such that you have only a certain sliver of population who are able to operate at that level of innovation and technology. And that is a scarce commodity. I think managing that in terms of, and scale for future businesses is not by volume. It's actually by technology and skills.
Mhm. Do you also see with your clients and customers that the shortage of skilled manpower or knowledge workers, we call it as, is it driving technology adoption faster? Or is it one of the necessities of the industry today?
So I would say it's the other way around. It's one of the biggest challenges currently in the market, which is, having the right amount of people, right? So again, having the right people with the right skills and the right configuration, as VC said, in the right quantity, right? So you having that is necessary, and everybody is kind of fighting to create a better employee value proposition, better talent acquisition engine, better skilling journeys, more L&D programs. So we believe knowledge workers overall is a strong asset that kind of differentiates every business. And we are seeing that as being a big theme in terms of investment. So we are seeing a massive shift. We've already spoken about the great resignations to, what's happened in terms of the talent shortage that we are seeing, and it's going to continue, right? But it's not just that we don't have enough people at VC side, right? It's about people with those right skills and those right configurations. And that's going to be important, because if businesses are, say, moving to modern technology, say cloud, and they are using IoT on cloud, now I need people skilled in programming and IoT and a cloud, say, and Azure technology come together and do that. Now that right configuration and that high skill, getting that is going to be difficult, but that's what is needed now. And then you need domain of manufacturing or domain of mobility or domain of agriculture as a market. You need those industry specific domain, process specific domain. Getting all of that together is going to be very difficult. So building that scale talent is, I would say, the biggest challenge for the industry and also the biggest opportunity. It's you could look at it both ways, but yeah, I think it's a very necessity thing to kind of drive.
Ajay, actually, I think it's a very interesting question, because on the one hand, I see businesses looking to technology to lower their people dependence and, and so on. But at the same time, investment into technology requires higher skilled people, right? So that's the paradox here. And being in the technology industry myself, as he says, the skill manpower is really the biggest challenge that the industry faces today. And we struggle actually to get qualified people, right, in terms of doing what we do. So one of the things actually fascinated me is, in fact, many years ago, the majors like Infosys and Wipro and TCS and all started universities, right? I mean, they just go and take anyone from any college graduate and put them through their own education system. And then they actually made the education system as a supplier for their own consumption kind of thing, right? And I think that is what, I mean, you don't need high volumes, but you need really high quality talent. And one of the things that we are doing as an organization is we are into hyper specialization in terms of, we don't work on wide range of areas, but very narrow areas, in such a way that we are not going to get ready skill outside at all. So we have to actually invest in terms of learning and development, in terms of our own actually people development. In fact, we prefer high quality, high aptitude, fresh resources. We find that experienced resources from lateral, other organizations actually are far more difficult actually to get. And we don't even expect the kind of quality, because most of them have drained to other economies where they are running differently, right? So that's people development is going to be central to any scaling that in the modern technology area that needs to happen. So that's one of the biggest challenges for us.
Ronak, earlier you talked about digital twin. I just want to go back to this point that, when you look at technology adoption, or you bring in new technologies, one of the things that, I oftentimes see nowadays is that, you go into a harsh plant and a hazardous plant. One of the key drivers of technology adoption is, or automation is, safety of people or human comfort. What kind of developments are you seeing in the developed world, such as America?
Yeah, I think it's a very valid point. And again, I think to your previous question, right, when you talked about the drivers, right? Run, change, and then the third thing being sustainable business. I think one of the things is, hey, you need to have, health, safety, accountability, and all of those things as part of this. So absolutely, I think that's a major theme that we are seeing. In terms of safety, and specifically using IoT and digital twins as a technology, it's happening across the board, from clinical trials to areas of like medical device manufacturing, which are like more sensitive, to areas which have high electromagnetic interferences and other kind of devices. We are seeing more and more wherever that human presence cannot happen, but you still need to be able to test this, right? So verification and validation is one use case. Audit of these devices another use case. Manufacturing overall definitely is one use case. We are seeing that if you want to be doing a lot more testing in terms of what's the safe level, what's the hazardous level, and you want to do this, you're able to use digital twin as an element to do it. So you are not working with the actual device, but you're getting the data from those devices and working in a control environment, sitting on a computer and kind of doing this. So you're much more safe. So you have lower hazardous environment to work with. So we do see from that perspective, from a health, safety, and environment perspective, HSE perspective, IoT and digital twins do play a big role, specifically when you want to do a remote maintenance. So we have one customer that they have large cranes and large instruments that are operating in very hazardous conditions on oil plants and fields, but almost 90% of that is monitored and operated remotely. So there is somebody who's sitting in a control center, command center, and kind of operating those virtually. There's no human present out there. So it's safer for the people to do that. So we are starting to see a lot more of that across the board. So yeah, that's I think brilliant question, and good that you got to highlight that.
Thank you. Are you seeing this VC in your world? Or do you come across such requirements? Yeah.
Can you repeat that question?
I was talking about health, safety, and environment. People are getting exposed to hazardous situations which can actually,
our
safety of people.
In our industry, the safety is all about data privacy and security. So, the breaches that can happen, and, privacy of data, protection of privacy of data, and things like that. And very well, that's really, really a hot area. And we spend hell of a lot of money in terms of making sure that our systems are secure, that, vital information does not go away and things like that. So it's more safety from that point of view. The other thing that is of importance is actually accessibility in terms of, standards. So, we have the American standard disability and accessibility standards, which we follow, which is very stringent actually, to make sure that it is available for everybody and all that. But the AR, VR area, which is augmented reality and virtual reality area, is one area where actually tremendous work has already been done by many majors in terms of improving the safety of people in hazardous environments. And I've heard of factories where it is completely unmanned, and you have drones going all over, and the people are working from home, following what's happening, and then they'll be able to read all parameters of what's happening on the plant, shut it off required remotely without going anywhere, and things like that. So obviously, I think technology plays a very, very important role in terms of human safety, without a question.
We talked about some very fascinating themes here through this discussion over the last 45-50 minutes. Obviously, the industry must be faced with many challenges. And these challenges could be opportunities as well. So what kind of challenges do you see, Ronak, from your client's perspective?
Yeah, I think I would reiterate the one that I already spoke about, but I think that's for me is across our clients, we see this as the shortage of overall IT skills and IT talent and technology talent. So I would say that is going to be the big theme. The second is going to be the ethics of technology overall. I think that's something which is a challenge as an opportunity. So for example, an AI is making a decision, and how do I trust that AI, right? So is it biasing against a particular person based on my gender, my race, my background, my economics? So that kind of is becoming very critical as we are looking at it. The third is overall diversity and inclusion of this industry. So we want to focus on driving a lot more on that, right? So from one of the themes as our research we kind of pointing towards is impact sourcing, which is working with providers who are helping disadvantaged communities get those skills and then kind of train them and then get them to deliver on planned projects. So we're kind of trying to see that as another area of a challenge for this market. So I would say those are major themes, and I know we see you want to talk about some of the other ones in terms of collaborations in the market and how that's happening up. I think that would be good.
From a business perspective, I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is time to market. I think really, it's an open world. I mean, anybody from a university can actually come and start challenging and taking on a problem and start really working on some of those stuff. So really, I think what is happening and is also actually we are doing is in terms of constantly identifying partners with whom we can work. Okay, what are the other technology solutions that we can integrate? In fact, even when there is no need, we are already talking about how do we have individual payment gateways, payment providers to be, integrated with. How do we actually do verifications of, people and, a whole lot of technology things. And what is happening is, I think it has opened up a new world of opportunities for many people to be so specialized in one area. And they create a technology which is open, which can get integrated with any other solution. And then putting it together as a one single large piece is becoming the order of what is being asked for actually creating any technology product today. And that requires, as I was telling you before, deep knowledge of what's available out there, how to actually put together selection of those. And you can imagine, Lakshmi, that in the manufacturing side, it's always very hard to find a great tool engineer, right? I mean, in the sense, a good engineer, solid engineer who actually can understand materials, understand tools, understand actually what processes will, with what parameters will actually create what results or problems. I think that depth of understanding of a particular issue is always a rare commodity. That's a skill that we are talking about. I think the biggest challenge, as Ronak said, is finding those we need those kind of engineers in software who really understand what is available, what is the problem at hand, how do we put it together, what challenges, what will happen if we have to scale it by a million multiplier. So those kind of things, actually, that talent is, and our thing is that we are in the products business. All these talents are really excellent talent, and they're actually all sitting in services business, generating lower value. Mm-hmm. And for us to get them into product mode, actually, which actually are building really high scale, businesses, their dearth of talent is really the biggest one. And for us, like our organizations, and now the startup ecosystem is so strong, there's a lot of money chasing. And then why, when an investor puts in the money and say, where is your team? And I don't care how, what you pay, what you don't pay, and you get me the team by day after tomorrow, or, for 2 weeks. And they will go and pay some ridiculous 5x, right? So to just get the talent, and so therefore protect your workforce, build it in a very sustainable manner is definitely the biggest challenge for the industry.
This COVID over the last 24 months or so has certainly been a major disruption, be it manufacturing industry, supply chain, the way in which people live. But, one of the biggest consequences of this COVID as a disruption has been this remote working. How it is impacting the industry in general?
I would say, yeah, and I would say this is, I think, helping at least one level. It is, it's a new way of working. So it's basically for a lot of us, it's kind of learning and adapting to kind of changing times. But at the same time, we are seeing this as a door opener to kind of go to locations and get talent, right? Again, we're talking about talent as one theme, which was not possible, right? But now we are working remotely. We can kind of get into those locations, those areas. So we are seeing that to be a big boon. Overall, people are able to kind of work from them. We are seeing One of the themes is more workforce that we can now kind of include, which earlier we were not able to kind of think from that. So I think that is one big, I would say, benefit. Other than that, the challenges around how do you manage supply chain, how do you make it more resilient, how do you kind of think of all of those things, I think we've learned a lot in that process. So the amount of innovation, right? Again, a lot of our clients said, hey, we had a roadmap to drive this modernization or transformation over the next 7 years. Hey, we finished that in 9 months. Because hey, we realize all of that needed to be done now to be able to kind of match. So we've seen massive acceleration in terms of innovation and adoption of digital technology, and it's good, right? Because now everybody's starting to think of the next phase and much faster. So it's been an accelerant. Obviously, it's been an irritant for all of us, but it's also been an accelerant in terms of how we kind of adapted. It's a good testament of adaptability of us as a species, right? Again, that's what I keep saying. So again, technology has played a big role in driving that adaptability.
Arjay, I can tell a number of stories around this. It's a very interesting question for me. We've had people who actually was working for us and also working for another 2 companies. Right? So we don't know. We can only give work, and we had somebody who was not even logged into our system for a week's time, and he was in our books. And he said, suddenly when in our audit we find, hey, what work did you do? Right? So it's very difficult, and particularly in a product development business, I still find actually, even the so-called people who are like nerds and who are, can very, not just nerds, the current generation, we were also nerds in one way. So, but, face-to-face meeting for product development is a very important component. And I think one interesting thing I found out is that in our product team, there are people who want to come back and socialize, because they get great ideas in water cooler conversations, not so much in a formal review meeting, right? So what kind of interactions happen around that and all that is actually, so therefore we are actually interestingly working on a way that everybody comes and at least works a couple of days out of the office in some roster or something like that. So that is becoming, to me, an important necessity for building the quality of the product. Otherwise, remotely, you don't have the touch and feel about what is really coming out and, how efficiently we are doing it and things like that. Our control systems are still not as mature to work remotely as I would ideally like to have. So that's a challenge. Secondly, there are people who are wanting to come. There are people who will say, no, I don't care. If you are going to ask me to come to office, I'm going to resign. So there are both sides of it. And the last point, as much as remote working, you are able to go and resource from somewhere else. Now, actually speaking, my son who was working here is working for a completely American company remotely from here, right? Mm-hmm. So, they are sourcing talent. They're sourcing our best talent and then working, it has made it completely global in the sense you can have your guy working from anywhere, right?
It's a kind of a flat world,
Oh yeah, and you get challenged from unimaginable sources. You get challenged, competition for your scarce resources, which are skills. You have several other people who are wanting to poach it.
When Sujata told me that, if we can become a chair for this, I thought 1 hour is too long, the time to talk. But I think we are running out of time. Thank you, gentlemen, for being part of such a fascinating discussion. If I were to have 30 seconds each for wrapping up, what would you say, VC?
Oh, I think it's an exciting world. I'm actually looking at my gray hair. You will imagine why is he still working, but I can't stop working. It's so exciting, the kind of changes that are happening in the industry all over. I think it's a fantastic time in terms of leveraging technology and seeing and how youngsters are really driving the next generation of scale and growth in terms of businesses. Very happy to be part of this panel. Thank you.
Ronak?
No, I think we touched so many different topics. And if I have to summarize in my head, I would say technology from a value maximization for all stakeholders is my mantra. And I would say if we all in our businesses start thinking of stakeholders, not just as our customers, partners, and employees and investors, but also the broader global community. I think that's going to be the key thing. If my message to everyone is start thinking from that perspective, your value equation will start changing. The way you kind of look at technology, and technology can then really make a lot of progress out here. So that would be my summation here.
You know, my key takeaways from this program is from this discussion is that obviously, you know, technology is offering growth. There's no doubt about it. But on the other hand, without technology, I think there is a question of survival. Technology is breaking barriers, it's bringing what I call transparency. It is making it more inclusive, whether it in terms of gender, whether it is in terms of various social strata, or it could be anything else. So to me, it is such a fascinating discussion with you this morning for people from the US and late evening for people from this part of the world. Thank you, gentlemen. And I'll hand it over to Sujata.